Hey guys, Diane here with the Green Eye Monster Review, and today I have a list that I have been working on for a while. This is a list of the 10 most recent Bram Stoker Award winners, and I've really been excited getting this list together just because the Bram Stoker Awards is such a prestigious award for an author to really receive, so it's been really interesting reading all these books, ranking them all, and it was just so fun that I really wanted to share that with you. So if you're watching this, please consider liking and subscribing. I know that a lot of people that are watching aren't necessarily subscribing, so this is me telling you, hit that subscribe button. Just do it. It's free. It's fun. So let's get into the list. Okay, so the Bram Stoker Award. For those of you that don't know, the Bram Stoker Award is a very prestigious award that is mainly given to horror and dark fantasy novels. It's given by the Horror Writers Association, which is a nonprofit organization that is really dedicated to the horror genre and really keeping it alive. And I'll link all that below if you want to check that out on your own, just for funsies or whatever floats your boat. Okay, so at number 10, and this received the Superior Achievement in a novel in 2012. And this is my number 10 pick, The Drowning Girl by Kiernan. So this was a book about a young woman, and she was schizophrenic. She had a lot of mental health issues within her family. And as you're going through the book, you're really going through all these issues, not only within her family, but within her mind. And you're really trying to figure out what's really going on, what's really happening. Is this reality? And those kind of books just in itself, I don't like. I don't like being so confused that I don't know which way is up, and is this character real? Is this character not real? I like a good twist in a book, but I don't like to be so lost that I have no idea what's going on. And that's what I felt like in The Drowning Girl. I will say that I did feel like it was well written. The character, she was a well-rounded character. It was a book that I could see receiving an award, but it's not a book that I enjoyed. So The Drowning Girl, I gave 4 stars to, because I didn't like it. And then at number 9, and this was released in 2013, and that's Dr. Sleep by Stephen King. And Dr. Sleep, for those of you that don't know, is the sequel to The Shining by Stephen King. So I'm thinking I'm going to get this phenomenal book just like The Shining was, and that's not what I got. It felt more to me like it was a compilation almost of superheroes kind of coming together. They're not superheroes, but people with powers and things like that, and I didn't enjoy that. This almost felt a little Marvel to me, and I'm not a big fan of that either. It just didn't hit the mark at all. It almost really didn't feel like Stephen King even wrote this. I think Joe Hill snuck in and wrote this for him, so I was not a fan. And of all of the Stephen King books that maybe not for 2013, but that could have won, this would have not even crossed my mind as something that would have won an award, because it didn't. I didn't get that Stephen King feel with it, so I feel like that was something that was missing. And that one I gave 5 stars. Okay, so coming in at number 8, and this is in 2018, is The Cabin at the End of the World. And this is about a couple and their daughter. They are vacationing at a very picturesque, a very secluded cabin, and a group of strangers comes up upon them, breaks into their cabin, and says, hey, you have a really rough decision to make. And the story just goes from there. I really enjoyed this book when I read it. It feels very heavy, it feels very claustrophobic, and it's very dark. And the decisions that they have to make, they are very hard decisions, and this book kind of leads you to a place where you're kind of questioning what's really going on. But I felt like with a book that was relatively short, that you go through a lot, not only physically, but also mentally, and it's very heavy. And at the end of it, I was really kind of like, I'm so depressed. So I feel like it was a good ride. Okay, so coming in at number 7, this was in 2015, is A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. So this is about a young woman. Her family thinks she's possessed. They're going through a lot right now. They're broke. They think their daughter's possessed. They're trying to make money, not necessarily off of her possession, but while she's possessed, I guess. Trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, let's say. And you're just going through the process with them. You're seeing the deterioration of not only their daughter, but of their relationships and of the family itself. So this book was really heavy. I feel like Paul Tremblay books are very heavy and not only in content, but just the way that it weighs on you. I gave this a 7 out of 10 stars. It was a really good book, and I can definitely see how this would win an award. Coming in at number 6 is Coyote Rage by Al Goingback, and this won in 2019. And this was a very hard book to find. I ended up finding it at a used bookstore, and I was ecstatic. I was like, oh my gosh, it was the most random thing that had happened to me in forever. So I was like, that's amazing. But this book is really more of a unique read than I've read, and this is more dark fantasy, I would say, than horror. But this is about a shapeshifter that is looking for a woman in the real world. So you're going back and forth between the shape-shifting animal world and the human world, and you're kind of seeing those two collide. There were some really creepy parts in this book that I really enjoyed. There was a little bit of a lull in the middle, and maybe that was maybe that was my fault, but I kind of got used to being in one world, and then it was kind of jarring at some points where it would go back and forth. But altogether, I really enjoyed this book. It was something different. It was something unique, and it's definitely something that I would recommend. And this one I gave us 7.5 stars. And then at number 5, and this one in 2020, is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. And this is probably one of the most popular books in the horror genre. Everybody has read this book. Everybody loves it. And for those of you that don't know, this is about 4 American Indian men that they have gone through some sort of traumatic event in their youth that is now haunting them as they've grown older. I didn't really find this book very scary. It felt more to me as kind of like a fiction novel. It was very well written. The characters were amazing. They really did feel like real people. And I'm from Oklahoma, so I've been to some Indian reservations and things like that. And this made it, I mean, it was spot on. It really transported you there, and it really gave you an insight to what that lifestyle is. And it was really good. I gave that 8 stars. Now we have number 4, and this one in 2021, My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. What a surprise. What a shocker. I know what you're thinking. I can't believe it. This is a very popular book. Everybody loved this book. I really enjoyed this book. This is about a young woman, Jade. She has an abusive father. Her mother is just, I don't really know where her mother went, but she is kind of going through some things. Some people go missing in the town, and she's trying to figure out who did it. This book was really heartbreaking. There was a lot of layers to this book, and you're kind of caught up in all the action that's going on. You're caught up in all the craziness that's kind of going on in her mind, when really there's a lot more deeper and disturbing things that are happening in this book. And it was really sad once you really kind of put 2 and 2 together. But Stephen Graham Jones is such a phenomenal writer. He is so good at writing a character and really filling those shoes and really making that person real, that I feel like anything he writes, I'm going to give a chance to. And this one I gave 8 out of 10 stars. Coming in at number 3, and this one in 2017, is Ararat by Christopher Golden. And this is about a group of archaeologists. They think they found the Ark, and they are figuring out if it's the Ark or what's going on. So this book, I went in thinking that it was going to be more of a creature feature, and it turned into something that was so much more. I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed the characters. I felt like it represented the characters really well, and the interpersonal relationships, I felt like there was a real unique and genuine bond between them. So this hit it out of the park. I really loved this book. It was a perfect read for the winter as well, if you're looking for something like that to wrap up your winter before spring. But this one I gave 9 stars to, because I really just loved it. And then at number 2, we have Bloodkin by Stephen Rasnic Tim, and this won in 2014. This was my most recent read. I just finished this because I'd been waiting for this book for probably about a month for it to come in. This book was so good. So this is about a young man and his grandma. His grandma is kind of telling him their story, their past ancestors, things like that, and it's really kind of coming to life. This book ended up being such a Southern Gothic horror tale that just kind of rewrote that genre for me, because I hadn't really experienced it the way that he had written it, and it was so good. I could definitely see this being on the top of a lot of people's lists, and I've never heard anyone talk about this. I'd never even heard of it, but once I saw the cover and even the name Bloodkin, that sounds like something that would just be really dark and interesting. But this book was really good. It's one of those books that's really heavy, and it really kind of sits on you until the end. And then once you finish it, you're really still kind of thinking about it. And I gave this 9 stars. It was just amazing. Okay, and now my number one pick is The Fisherman by John Langan, and this came out in 2016. This is not only my number one pick on this list, but of all time. I love this book so much. It's a little nostalgic for me just because when I first started reading horror again, this was one of the first books, and it just blew me away. It just started off my journey in the best way. So this is about two men. They work together and they've both lost their wives. They start kind of hanging out. They start going fishing. They've kind of bonded at this point, and they have found this little creek, this very secluded fishing spot that has a little lore attached to it. And so they're kind of figuring out what is so special about this fishing spot. And it just, a lot just ends up happening. There's two timelines, and it's not jarring, but you get so attached to each timeline that you just feel so pulled out of it, and you are just waiting to get back into it. But then once you're in the next timeline, it happens again. And both of them, they were just amazing stories, and the ending was phenomenal. This is a book that I feel like it was 10 stars. It was perfect to me. Like I said, it is a little nostalgic, but that doesn't mean that it's not a good book. So let me know how you feel about any of these books, if you've read any of these. There's a few books on here that I had never heard of. Coyote Rage I'd never heard of, and I'm really glad that I got to read that because it was something different. It was something new, and it really explored the shape-shifting like I'd never seen. It was a really fun book, and that's what I really enjoyed about it. Also, Bloodkin, I'd never heard of that. I'd never heard anybody talk about it, and it's at my number 2 spot. I love that. Gothic horror at its finest. It was so good. So let me know in the comments if you've read any of these. Hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.